In the heart of the American Midwest, where the land stretches endlessly beneath a wide, silent sky, there lived a man named Jack Turner. He was a rancher, tough, quiet, and deeply rooted in the soil he called home. Life had shaped him with calloused hands, sunburned skin, and a heart hardened by loss. Years ago, Jack had been a different man. He had dreams, a wife who laughed like spring rain, and hope in his eyes. But life can be cruel. A tragic accident took his wife and unborn child in a single icy night, leaving Jack to drown in silence and solitude. Since then, he had closed the doors to his heart and opened them only for cattle, horses, and the land that demanded everything but gave little in return. Jack had no friends, not really. Just the mailman who stopped by once a week, and the grocer who delivered supplies every other Saturday. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his voice carried the weight of someone who had spent more time talking to the wind than two people. 1. Dry autumn afternoon, Jack decided to make a rare trip into the nearest town of Dustin Creek. He needed fencing wire, new boots, and a few supplies for winter. As he tied his horse outside the general store, a small crowd gathered at the edge of the square caught his attention. He wasn't one to meddle. But something about the commotion, shouting, gasping, a child's silent stare made him walk. Over, there, in the center of the crowd, stood a drunken man, filthy, wild-eyed, and wobbling on his feet. He held a girl by the wrist. She looked no older than 14 or 15, thin and pale, with tangled hair falling into her face. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She simply stood there, staring blankly at the dusty ground. She don't speak, the man slurred. She's deaf. Worthless. Can't work, can't talk, just eats and stares. But I'll sell her cheap. Who wants her? Gasps and murmurs filled the crowd. Some turned away in disgust. Others shook their heads but did nothing. Jack's blood turned cold. She ain't even mine, really, the man continued, laughing. Wife died. Girl don't belong to no one now. The girl looked up. Her eyes met Jack's, for the briefest moment, and something passed between them. Not a word, not a plea. Just a deep, haunted silence. But it struck Jack like lightning. He had seen that look before in the mirror on the night he buried his wife. Leave her be. Someone in the crowd muttered, This ain't right. It's Trisk. The man shoved the girl forward, almost knocking her over. You want her? $5. Just 5, and she's yours. I don't want her no more. Jack stepped forward before he realized what he was doing. I'll take her, he said quietly. The crowd went silent. The drunk man squinted at him, unsure if he was serious. You? The rancher. Jack reached into his coat, pulled out a few crumpled bills, and handed them over without a word. The man snatched the money and staggered away, laughing as he disappeared. Into the saloon, the girl didn't move. Jack knelt down slightly so he wasn't towering over her. Come on, he said gently. You're safe now. She didn't respond, but she followed. The ride back to the ranch was quiet. Jack didn't expect conversation, especially not from a girl who couldn't hear. He wasn't sure what he'd just done. He didn't rescue people. He wasn't a hero, simply couldn't walk away. Back at the ranch, Jack showed her to a small room in the house that hadn't been used in years. It was dusty, but warm. He brought her clean clothes, a plate of stew, and a blanket. She didn't say anything, just nodded slightly and sat on the edge of the bed. He left her alone. In the following days, Jack tried to maintain a sense of normalcy. He didn't know her name, couldn't ask. She didn't write, but she wasn't afraid of him, and that was something. He noticed how she watched everything. Her eyes missed nothing. She studied the animals, the tools, the way Jack moved through his day. Slowly, she began to help. She swept the porch, gathered eggs, filled the water troughs. Jack didn't tell anyone about her. It wasn't anyone's business. Besides, who would care? A rancher with a strange girl on his property wouldn't exactly earn kind whispers in town, but Jack didn't care about that. Asterisk the girl, though silent, brought a strange sense of life back to the ranch. The rooms no longer felt as empty. There was movement, presence, quiet but not lifeless. Asterisk, one evening. Jack noticed her sitting under the old willow tree behind the barn, staring up at the sky. He watched her from a distance. The wind rustled the branches above her, and for a moment, Jack thought he saw her lips move just slightly. Like a whisper without a zund. Asterisk, he dismissed it. Probably just imagination. Asterisk days passed into weeks. The girl worked alongside him without complaint. She understood gestures, responded. 2 nods. She never smiled, not fully, but her shoulders loosened. Her eyes grew less clouded. Asterisk Jack began calling her kid. It felt better than nothing, asterisk. You did good, kid, he'd say when she helped with the cattle. She'd nod in response. There were moments when Jack would forget she was supposed to be deaf. Like when he'd hammer a nail too hard and mutter under his breath, and she'd glance at him. Or when a horse neighed loudly and she flinched. Asterisk, but he never questioned it. Maybe she could feel vibrations. Maybe she sensed mood, tension, motion. Some people were like that. Then came the night everything began to unravel. Asterisk. It was a stormy night, the kind that makes even the sturdiest ranch house creak under the weight of thunder. Rain came down in sheets, and lightning lit up the sky like war. Asterisk, the horses were panicking. Jack rushed out to the barn with a lantern, shouting commands, trying to calm the animals. Asterisk, to his shock. The girl was already there, barefoot, drenched, her hands steady as she soothed a frightened mare. She was speaking not with words, but with calm gestures and a presence the animals trusted. Asterisk, Jack called out. Close the stall door. She turned, wide-eyed, and did exactly that. He stared at her. Asterisk, he hadn't gestured. He hadn't pointed. He had only spoken. Asterisk, how had she known? Asterisk, 1,000 thoughts swirled in his head. Could it be? No, she was deaf. She had to be. Right. But something inside Jack's, something old and wounded, began to stir. What if she wasn't? Asterisk, what if the truth was deeper than he'd imagined? Asterisk, he didn't say a word. Asterisk. But from that moment on, Jack watched more carefully. Every movement, every glance, every flicker of reaction, asterisk, and slowly, the silence around the girl began to feel less like a disability and more like a secret.